Hello everyone. Sakurai says my kitten is trying to get to the monitor to sniff your kitties. My kitties are not entirely behaving as expected because Tavi has run away from the catnip lure. So I don't know what that is. We got new catnip. If they chill out, I will show you the package. I don't want them to see it again. And I ended up, we weren't planning to go out to the pet store anytime soon, so I ordered off Amazon. And I was looking through the listings and I was like, well, you know, I want to make sure I get one that is grown with some sort of, you know, not grown somewhere where they don't care if there's a lot of stuff in it. And this was one of the first ones I happened upon, and it's like kitty crack, and they're describing it like drugs. And then all the people in the reviews are like, you know, I thought this must be hyperbole, but man, this is the best catnip ever. And I have to say, they really, I'm not sure they were lying. Because the first time we gave it to the cats, like, the reaction lasted longer than usual, and they were, I mean, Chai for a while just sort of melted over something. And then the other two were running around, having a lot of fun. Go back up there. Do you want me to put you back up there? You don't want to go by Corbin? Here, your sister is guarding all the drugs. Help her with that. So, I will show you that. Nope, you want to climb up the chair and claw me in the neck when I'm not looking. So they've had it the past couple of days. We probably should not have given them any yesterday to, you know, sometimes they need to take a little break from catnip for the reaction to be as strong. But I mean, it's working on two of them apparently. And it was like they all knew because they showed up. Even Corbin came in about 15 minutes before I was going to start while I was setting up. And he's kind of walking around. I'm like, oh, you got 15 minutes if you're here for the catnip, bud. And now he opened the door. So you're going to hear my husband's meeting. Hold on just a minute. Trust me, I've listened to a number of these morning meetings, and you don't want to hear them if you don't have to. But I suppose everybody thinks that about everybody else's business. Let's put a little, I don't know how this thing can need water because this humidity, so much humidity. I need there to be slightly less humidity, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So I was thinking I should probably, oh yeah, Chai's looking pretty toasted over there. Now, she does love her sleep. She is like, for such a young cat, she's not 2 years old yet, she has really committed to sleep. It's like, she will sleep on you, but only if you're not, you know, moving too much or whatever. She's like, nope, I need to go someplace much more peaceful to enjoy my slumbers. Grey Mouser says, I really don't even want to listen to my own meetings, which I imagine is true also for a lot of business. But you at least know what they're about, where sometimes you just hear these, you know, most, like think how much jargon we have in miniature painting, and most businesses are like that too, and you hear the same words and phrases over and over, and you're like, it just sounds, I don't know, fake or goofy. I don't know, if you don't know really what it is, or if you kind of know what it is but you haven't bought in. Grey Mouser usually misses most of the meetings. Well, how do you pull off that tactic? I'm sure others would be very delighted to know how you can miss most of your meetings. Alright, I'm just fixing my palette up a little, but I will show this while I'm here. So this is, I keep this to the side, and I may have shown it in other episodes, shows, I don't know what I'm calling this. So it's like just a little box where I collect small things so they aren't all over the desk and I can move them around if I need to. But I've, for years, just had all the pokey tools lying plain, and then sometimes the pointing part pokes up, or for some reason it's hard to find one, even though clearly I have more than I thought was in here, and there's one that's not in here because somehow I broke the tip off so it doesn't actually poke well enough. That is the other one. I think it's another one of these guys, so, you know, still perfectly paintable though. But yesterday I was doing something on my desk, and it occurred to me, like, why don't I I was like, I could get a pin cushion. And I'm like, well, or I could try making my own pin cushion with poster tack, and I think it works. Hopefully will also keep me from worrying about the cats getting into that. Tabby's like obsessed with that little thing, and then I put something on top of it to try to distract her, and that only obsesses her more. She likes playing with these. She's already stolen a couple of those from me. Tabby likes to feel like she found the thing more than that I've provided a toy. I think it makes it more fun when she feels like she hunted it up. Or she just has to do that because when we try to play toys, and Kevin was saying he was playing with them this morning, and Chai was hogging it, and that is a lot what happens. She's kind of... I feel like Tabby's contesting her for the queen bee status, but I'm not sure that she has done this successfully yet. So, if you weren't here last week, I was painting a figure with a limited color palette. And I just kind of wanted to talk about other ways to... So really, you cannot mix all the colors. You know, the color wheel says that you can mix all the colors with these. The color wheel says that, you know, I should be able to mix like red and blue, and you can't get that mixing red and blue. Magenta, you need to have a magenta. So usually what you do, and I have a article I wrote that I'm going to make poor Quindy find again. It's like the only paint colors you need or something, and it lists like 15 colors that you could put together for a small set. A lot of fine artists will do it with like 6. So they'll have, you know, the magenta and the red, and then a warm blue and a cool blue, and a warm yellow and a cool yellow, black and white. What's that? That's 8. So you can do it with 8, but people will usually have another couple colors they throw in. But you don't have to use all of the colors on all of the things. And the fewer you use, the more confident you can be that all the colors you are using will go together, because that's it. They're all, you know, at least 2 of them are going to be in every thing that you paint, probably. So they're going to go together. There's probably a longer version of how to explain that, but I guess I'm going to go with just trust me right now. But there are other ways to do limited color schemes. So this is really more of a limited palette. I'm only giving myself these tools, but I have chosen these tools knowing that I have a lot of options with them. The other way to do it, and this is if you do the Reaper Challenge League, I think they have a couple of, or at least they have at least one challenge like this, I think, where you like roll for your colors. So this figure, I don't think I actually, so this, yeah, burgundy wine and blue liner and white. So it looks like it's in Twilight, and really, you know, those are colors that I got for it. It's supposed to, you know, I called it Miranda by Moonlight. So no, I do not have a natural skin tone out of this the way I can with the red, white, and blue. Another way I've done it is you don't necessarily have to mix the paints yourself. You just kind of have to look and see, you know, you pick out a limited selection of colors. And then I guess if you need anything extra, you mix that. But so I decided on, I wanted to do a purple and teal miniature, because you know how we all love purple and teal. So Quindy's put up the link to my paint palette suggestion and also the Reaper Challenge League, which if you would like to be challenged to complete some miniatures, it's a really fun way to do it. And Quindy is explaining that you're given 3 colors for the limited challenge, but can be any paint of that color. So it can say blue and I can pick this one, or I can pick Snow Shadow or whatever I want. That is what it sounds like. So for this figure, which I did not bring over, it's an elf, like a very ethereal kind of elf with a bow. I have showed it here before, but it's a resin miniature, and I broke the bow a little while back, so I haven't fixed it yet, and I didn't want to risk breaking it further. That was me. That wasn't because I put it on the show. I broke it when I was putting it away after. So I had this set of colors, and this is very limited. I mean, there's not a true green, there's not a true yellow, there's not a true blue, but it did give it this nice moody feel. And then for like things I mixed, from that I made notes so that if I had to, this was something I was painting as a contest miniature, so it took a hot minute. If I needed to mix one of these again, I had, and that's probably why I did this too. I even made notes on what the paint contents were, which is not as necessary when you do, if these are the only colors I can make, I can probably figure out, I've got 3 colors. I can probably figure out which one I might use to get that color. So last week I was working on this guy, and I did make notes, but not great color notes. So most of this is not that. That was the base of the red, that was the base of the gray, that was the base of his shift, and that was the base that I just kind of randomly made for the leather. So I was thinking, as I was preparing for the show, that I should probably change the name of the show to, like, I don't know, Cats and Miniature Therapy or something. I don't know. But I am going to talk about how I am not happy with what I did, as I often do, or I don't think I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. And if you guys are getting tired of me talking about this stuff, send me DMs and let me know. I won't be hurt. But I feel like we don't talk about our thoughts and feelings during the process of miniature painting and thinking about what we've painted, and that we can really, as a consequence, beat up on ourselves and make it harder for a different reason. And then the other reason I'm doing it is, so I've been taking this gouache class, which I have not been putting the work in on. Hey, if he paints. So every Sunday he does a stream and he paints something, and then he sends us the video and the copy of what he did. And let me just say that I still hate that 4 years later we are still using Zoom for art stuff, but that is a whole other rant that I will save for later, I guess. But he had this neat little thing, and I tried to find one on the internet right before the show started, and I failed. But it was basically, he was saying, like, learning to critique yourself while you're painting is very important and very helpful to you. So we get feedback on our paint. If you're one of the people that actually does paintings, he gives us feedback. But he likes to ask what was your experience like? How did you feel about the paint? How did it go? Was certain colors difficult? That kind of thing. And people will say, I was really struggling with the grains, or the paint just seemed like it was happy doing that and I didn't like doing that, because gouache is like this whole thing. Anyway, but then he had this little chart that he'd written out, and it was kind of like, so here's the art process. Do something. He's like, this something isn't going to be great. It's just something. You got to get something on the paper. You got to get something on the miniature. Is it good? Do you like it? No. Why? And he said, the trick there is be specific. You can't just say, because I suck and I'm terrible at this and it's horrible and I hate it. That does not help. That is, as Zachariah I.M. said, beating yourself up. It's not going to make you better. It's more likely to make you stop painting at all, because you're making yourself feel bad. You feel pain. You're not going to do the thing that makes you feel uncomfortable. So what you need to start trying to do is say, why? What don't I like about this? Is it too dark? Is it too light? Does that color feel like it just isn't getting along with this other color? You might not be right. I was taking another art course, and he said, and this was just, you're trying to draw, it was portraiture. Actually, I think it was just realism. It was just realism in general. So you're trying to, I'll use a face as an example. You're trying to draw the face. Here, we'll use this one because you can see your face a little more. And, do you have the eyes in the right place, at the right tilt? Is the mouth the correct size? You're looking at all of these, hundreds of things. And he's like, you will often think it is one thing and really it's something else. So you kind of have to change something and assess again, and then change something and then assess again. Look at multiple possibilities before you just jump in and go, oh, it's this line here. If I fix this, it'll be fine. And he's 100% correct. I have done that. You stare and stare at something and you're like, well, this is what's wrong with it. And then if you kind of just step back for a minute and think about it, or you come back the next day, you're like, oh, wow. Not only was that not the only thing wrong, but the thing I identified was not the problem. And if I just do this, then it's going to be much better. So and he pointed out, and I think this is true, when you see people who like whip through paint, like he does these paintings in like 50 minutes or something that take us much longer. When you see someone who's whipping through painting a miniature or anything like that that involves skill, they have learned to do that process better and quicker. Like they've just been doing it so long that they've internalized a lot of, okay, I know that I tend to, and I was talking a week or two ago, I tend to paint the bases too dark. So if I know that and I keep that in the front of my mind when I'm painting rocks on bases, I can try and compensate for it before I even start, and then I can also be keeping an eye out to see, am I doing this while I do it? So when I critique myself, it is partly with the hope of sharing how to better critique yourself, because it does help. It does help to, if you can do it while you're doing the thing and fix it, or, at least while you're still in process on the thing, it helps a lot. And one of the things that has helped me, as I've said before, is I have a shelf. I put things on the shelf. I pass by the shelf and I go, oh, wow, that doesn't look like I thought it did. And that definitely happened with this guy, which is I do not like the way the robe came out. My intention was to have a variety of values on here, and I think the skin's a little darker than I intended if I look at it in regular light. The cloak's a little darker, but I think I can live with it. Because, the skin and the cloak were supposed to be on the lighter side, and then the blue was kind of supposed to be in the middle, and then the red was going to be the darker color. And this is not really a middle blue. This is kind of a dark blue. I don't know, it looks like there's just little dots on it instead of kind of looking like that's a fabric. And I think, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think what happened is, if you were here last week, I talked about how I was gonna, and those were the colors I was showing, start with the darkest version of each color, because that's a quicker way to paint. And it is, and I have done it, but I haven't done it a lot. It's not how I normally paint, so I'm not practiced at doing that judgment as I go along, the way I am more practiced at that when I paint the way I usually paint, because I'm used to it. So that we also tend to have this thing, it's like, I'm a miniature painter, I know how to miniature paint, so I learned this technique, and I should get it, right? Because I already know what a brush and a paint and all this stuff is, I should get the technique. And it does not always work like that. I had put, here, I will switch to right now I could just put a picture up of her and it'd be the same as what, you can see her breathe, but she's not super exciting right now. So I will switch over to palette cam, and then I will encourage palette cam to have lightness in its life. And what did I do? All right. I thought I had everything adjusted before I started, as usual, but apparently I did not. So last time, for the ease of helping mix, I put out some colors. I ended up putting out like too many colors, I think. And this is not the order I would normally do. So I like to keep the lighter colors to the opposite side of the darker colors. But, people who regularly paint this way, you will get a palette layout you like. So if you were using the whole, split complementary thing I talked about earlier, where you have a warm and cool version of each, it'd be like, I'd have like white, cool yellow, warm yellow, cool red. I'd come up with an order, and then I'd just kind of know, because you're just like quickly going over to get paints and stuff, instead of having to think, oh, okay, what's that? But I only have one of each, so I think I'm going to be able to figure out whether it's red or blue. I think. I'm not 100% sure. Zachariah this year will probably be my first ReaperCon painting contest entry. Probably. Well, you should, because it is a totally different contest than when it was a top 3. So it's not about, trying to beat out amazing people like Derek. The pressure is off. You are just competing against yourself, and it's for fun, and it's to, have your miniature be there in the room with a whole bunch of other cool miniatures, and whatever it does in the contest, like a ton of people are going to come up and go, ooh, and walk by and look at it and enjoy it. So it's totally regardless of your skill level, of your painting preferences, or anything else like that, it is totally worth going in the contest. I'm also not sure if the blue's a little, like it's a rich blue in the highlights, and I'm not sure if it should be a little more of a dull blue. I mean, that's like totally a side point, I guess. But you know, I'm gonna mix more of that because I will be using one of those fluffy dome dry brushes for pointillism. So I'm trying to get a read on the value and whatnot before I consider this done. So I'm just adding a little bit of the red and a little bit of the yellow to dull out the blue. Because if you mix everything together, in theory, you get neutrals. So you get like browns and grays. But if you just mix a little bit of something, you're just shifting it a little towards being more brown or more gray or whatever. So I think this pool is lighter than, you know, the darker shadow. What I need to do is kind of get rid of more of the shadow too. So I need to just do a little more on it, I guess. Is sort of what I mean. So this is absolutely, it can feel fiddly and a bit painful when you first start doing it, because what if I just put in a whole bunch more yellow, like way more than I wanted, and it did more than kind of gray it out? I would have to go put more of the other things in to switch the ratio back. But eventually you kind of get an idea of, oh, this is a very potent color, this is not a very potent color. You know, so when I go in, if I'm putting something weird in something else, so I should just put a very little bit in and see how it goes before I, you know, commit to that. And, you know, think about the portability factor. If you're trying to be more portable, or you want to be able to paint at lunch or something, well, five paints is a pretty good way to do that, I would say. So because of the little pointillism thingy, I'm hoping that I can get away with not too many mixes. So that is another way that I might have been able to help myself with this. I did all the dark coats and then I kind of mixed as I went, where if you've watched me paint before, I normally lay out, painters tend to call it a string, where I've got my values from, I mean, it's not exactly in order here, from darkest to lightest or lightest to darkest, and I kind of know where I'm trying to go. Do I always get that guess right? No, absolutely not. But it at least, I've thought out the whole what is my contrast level thing before I've done anything on the miniature. So when I get to the miniature, I may find that, oh, that actually reads a little darker, a little lighter than I thought. But it's a way to push myself to do higher contrast as well, because I've worked out the contrast question here, not here. And I think the more we can split up the tasks involved in painting, like, I don't know why, but in the miniature painting world, we are determined that we're going to go from juggling 2 balls to chainsaws, things on fire, and, you know, fragile bottles. And we should be able to juggle all of that at once. That's what painting is being able to do all the things well at once. And from what I can tell from both miniature painting and traditional art, that is not how people are doing it. That is really not how people are doing it. And we are just making our lives harder in the attempt. There may be people who've internalized everything to such a degree that they can kind of work through steps in their mind or whatever. But there are an awful lot of, you know, a lot of people do paintings, they do the drawing first, and then they do the painting. There are other ways to do it, mass in the values and stuff, which is actually how I prefer to do it. Drawing is boring. But like there are lots of different ways to split the task up. Chunk it. Isn't that what they say in the business world now? You got to chunk it down. You got a giant task. You got to chunk it. All right. This color may be too dark to need to be added, but it's good to have it for a reference. So I'm going to actually start with these depressions, which also, based on some of them, sometimes when you do texture, I would say like you don't have to bother with putting a lot of detail of the texture into the shadows, because when things are like shadowed, we often don't see a lot of texture. When things are really blown out the same way, like if something's right beside a light, you don't really see a lot of texture either. Which is, you know, knowing about the shadow thing is handy for quick painting. So my goal is to overall lighten it up a bit and also try to make it look more like this is like some kind of fabric texture, you know, worsted wool, or I don't actually know much about fabric. I should. My grandmother was a seamstress, but I do not. Here's the funny thing about my grandmother being a seamstress. She had the worst taste. Like she would wear patterns and plaid together or something. Like she would totally 100% do that. And the fact that these people had shared, you know, because they would usually come in with their fabric choices and whatnot. All of those years of interacting with people who had taste. And I'm not, you know, my grandmother was like a wonderful woman and she could do some cool things, but it was just an interesting example of, I guess, you know, it probably was just something she'd never really thought about. Like she probably got into the technical parts of the sewing and didn't worry much about that part, because people did usually pick out their own stuff, or I don't know, maybe she just liked what she liked. But it was kind of interesting. I'm gonna have to fix I should not have painted these sleeves before doing the messy part. So this is, if you were here last week, I started this miniature boldly believing I might be able to paint it in one session. And then because this is not the way I normally paint, that didn't happen, because I have to think about it more than, you know, someone who paints a lot of fast minis all the time. They're going to have all kinds of things that they already know. See, now that's not good though, because I did already have that. They're going to have all these things they already know how to do or not to do or when to do that I might not have experience at, or that I almost definitely don't have experience at. Well, we're probably just going to have to fix some of that. That's fine. That is life. I mean, if I were really gonna fuss, I would go back to that cloak and make it a bit lighter, but I was gonna try to resist the urge. If You Paints has no regrets about entering minis in the MSP Open the 2 years they went. I hope you can make it back sometime. I know it's not always easy to do con travel and stuff. And how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Yes. So it can be very helpful to figure out how to divide tasks up on a miniature. And to not expect everything to look amazing at every stage. Like, that is a very pressure-filled way to do things. All right, let's jump up to this color and see if it's enough of a difference. It may not be. Do a little bit. So I don't want to like completely wipe out all of that dark crevice, but I do want to. See, this is where I can't always figure out the stuff that's supposed to be quicker, like dry brushing and stuff. It's like, great, okay, but if I already painted some stuff and then I'm messing that stuff up, because I don't know what I'm doing, like I said. Or, I'm still learning how to do this better. So I thought it might be a nice opportunity to talk about learning as well. Because people research learning, and I'm not saying that I'm like, I don't have a teaching degree. I have not studied up on this extensively, but I have kind of looked into it a little bit. And there are a variety of theories. It's not like they think there's not just one unified opinion. But you may have heard the thing about the 10,000 hours. So a guy wrote a book some years ago now, and he studied people who were really good at things, and his conclusion was that you had to put in at least 10,000 hours before you could be like a master at something. And like certainly you do have to put in time. And Zachariah has a degree in music ed, so a teacher degree, which I suspect that there has been a lot of change in that since you went to school, as is true for, I guess, what most of us learned. Well, what did I learn? English and French and journalism. Journalism certainly has changed since I went to school. I don't know if they bother with ethics classes anymore, or if it's all about just how to get the clicks. You didn't used to have to worry about how to get the clicks. But yeah, so there's this guy with the 10,000 hours, and that's not, they think there are people, or that it's possible to do it faster than that. And also the saying, practice makes perfect. It's like, well, yes, but it's not just, sit there and paint, 1,000 zombie miniatures with dry brushing and washing, and then you're going to turn into, I don't know, who are the gods these days? Kara Curley, why am I blanking on all the people who I admire in painting? Sergio Calvo Rubio, whoever your personal painting god is. There are many. Aaron Lovejoy, James Wapple. There are very, very many to choose from. And I am bad at names when I'm trying to do 3 other things. That's not how they became who they are or what they do. That's not how they learn to do what they do. The trick isn't just practice, it's deliberate practice. And the ideal, unfortunately, I don't think anyone has studied this with art type stuff specifically. So they've done it with music, they've done it with sports, probably because both of those are more measurable. Whether someone is playing in time and playing the wrong notes, you can measure that. You can measure how fast and how accurate people are doing the sports things. And art, a lot of art stuff is probably a little more, like you can't put it on a scale as much. So my guess would be that there's not a lot of information on learning art, but I can see enough similarities between those things. I mean, all of them are also physical tasks as well as mental ones and knowledge and stuff. So I can see it being likely that this applies to color stuff, other than the whole, you're never gonna know that you can pick colors that everyone in the world is gonna love, because there's just too much of a subjective element to color and stuff like that. But the ideal is you want to be pushing to do tasks that are more challenging, they're more challenging than what you can do right now, but not incredibly. So I think, you can see why you would pick music or a sport to study, because it's like, okay, if you can throw the basketball X yards, meters, now your goal is to throw it Y, X plus whatever. But that's kind of the idea, is you don't get better by just doing the same thing over and over again. You get better by pushing yourself to do it better or faster or more efficiently, and then to add additional skills onto that. In an ideal world, you want to try to pick those in a way that is challenging but not disheartening, I think is kind of what you're going for. And when you're teaching yourself, that is the challenge, because you may not know until you try. Now, there's some elements of that that I like to kind of put the other way. If you aren't doing that, that is cool. Not everybody, it's not the goal of everyone. Everyone's goal is not to be a master at something. Mini painting could very well be your hobby that you just want to enjoy and do for fun. And that is great too. Highly endorse that. What is not great is if you treat it that way, if you're painting the 1,000 zombies, but then you get mad that you're not painting, like, okay, let's see, you've got listed Michael, Aaron, Luca, Rhonda, and David. Yeah, if you're painting your 1,000 zombies because you want to, that's your army. That's for your game. You just love zombies, whatever reason. That is cool. Have fun. Rock on. But to then also get mad at yourself or the system because you aren't winning gold medals or whatever. I mean, Crystal Brush isn't Crystal Brush anymore. It's back to being Golden Demon. But whatever thing it is that you're, whatever goal you're looking at, you're not getting X likes on social media. Like, everybody sets different kind of metrics for themselves for what getting better would look like. So yeah, I think that's lightened up a little, but we're gonna add a few more highlights. And that one, I kind of think that's on us to put that together. So it's not always, well, I've been painting for 20 years, or something like that. It's okay, but how do you paint? And if you paint for fun, great, do it. I think being able to do things for fun and not put pressure on yourself is very challenging in the world that we have now. And take credit in your accomplishment in resisting the whole, you gotta make it a side gig, you gotta be the best, you gotta rule, or what, like all of that. If you can manage to just do something for fun, that is also a very cool accomplishment. That is not actually lighter, is it? I'm stressing on my paper, I think. Zachariah taught horseback at the college. Wow, that's cool. And did painting classes too. And teaching has improved since then. Hopefully. I mean, I had some interesting conversations with teachers recently. Or maybe I should say ex-teachers, because they didn't want to do it anymore. Zachariah says, how accurately did you draw that vision in your head? How accurately? Interestingly, a lot of artists have aphantasia, which is you cannot picture things in your mind, or you cannot picture things in your mind very well. Jean does. And I have it to a degree. I think I have improved since I started working on visual art. Miniatures didn't do it because, I just had to visualize colors or whatever. And I guess I wasn't working at it. But yeah, I can't draw straight out of my head as a rule. I have to kind of look at something. I can mash that all up or whatever. And not necessarily do the exact something. But I gotta look at something. Pretty sure I made a hole in my paper there. I gotta figure out how to store more nicely. So that's a funny story about figuring out what problems are. When I first started painting, I used toothpicks to stir a lot, especially before I switched to a wet palette. And, it seemed cost effective. I probably didn't have many junky brushes then because I just had a few brushes, which is now hilarious because I have so many brushes. It's completely mental. I was looking at them yesterday. I needed a container, and I'd gotten rid of some of my containers, and all the ones I kept, I turned into brush holding things, and that's an awful lot of brushes to need to hold. Anyway, where was I beginning with this story? What an excellent question. Oh my gosh, I completely lost my train of thought. That is sad. I'm not normally that bad. Extra ADD day, I guess. Oh, the toothpick. Right. So I had this miniature, and, it was probably like my 7th or 8th miniature. This thing is up on Cool Meaning You're Not Somewhere. Actually, I've shown it to you guys because it was my intention to repaint her. It's the lady whose name I currently forget, that it was in the Skin and Cloth set that Anne had done for the Reaper Learn to Paint kits, so the older ones. And there was just like this fuzz. Like the miniature looked kind of fuzzy, the paint. And I'm like it wasn't the primer. I had looked at the primer and that was fine. And people are like, oh, you're not watering your paint down, your paint's too thick, and all that stuff that people say. And I'm like, no, I thinned quite a lot because I did then. And I was just, really puzzled. And eventually I realized the toothpicks, I was using the Masterson Stay Wet, the parchment paper, as well as their paper, as well as the thing. And I was actually pulling up textures from the paper that got into the paint. Yep, I was chewing up the paper. Because it hadn't happened on previous miniatures. It's like, why this one? Why this one lady? And it was, it was an example of how sometimes you have to problem solve, and asking other people can help, but they don't always know the answer. Like, they're going to go with the most common answer or the thing that worked for them. And this is why it's helpful to start to do that thing of working out stuff yourself. Now, possibly I've now made the hat at least too light, but the nice thing about the little pointillism method is that we can go back down too. I mean, okay, you can with layers as well, but that's not going back down. That is making a big mess. So it really, really helps to, like, okay, do I feel bad that I couldn't paint a miniature in one show and that I screwed up something that seems pretty basic? I mean, I don't feel great about it, but also if I tell myself, yeah, that's not the way I work. So for me to expect that I would get it right is probably more incorrect than expecting me to get it wrong. So that's just me having unrealistic expectations, or lying to you all about how I could do something in one thing. But I did tell you all to take odds, and feel free to bet in the comments about whether I would achieve my goal. And I suspect that didn't happen because you all knew that I would not. So who was going to take the bet? But I'm just gonna accept the fact that this is, I'm not super fast, or I'm not going to get fast unless I keep doing this enough to get faster at it. And that is what it is. Like, I don't need to, unless I'm practicing it, it is not a reasonable expectation for me to be expecting myself to get better at it, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Zachariah generally needs reference to work out a freehand design, but has a rune alphabet that he made up to reference for quick. Yeah, that's nice to have an alphabet. I have some. So there's these books that I think they're Dover, and I used to be subscribed to their email list like way back in the day. And they put out books that have like copyright free stuff. So it's like Art Deco or medieval, or like it's just stuff that's old enough, or that sometimes they have some, like they have a wizard book and some other stuff where they've contracted an artist that agrees to put the stuff out copyright free so that you can use it on stuff like freehand and I guess wood designs and I don't know, whatever things other people, I use them for freehand, but whatever things other people are using for what they're doing, stained glass windows maybe. And I would save all the rune things that they sent out for sure. You know, different languages or alphabets. I saved a lot of stuff actually, and I would print it out. Like this is how long ago I started painting miniatures, which it doesn't seem like that long ago, because I know there were lots of people that I still know that started painting before I did. So I don't feel like I get to be one of the old salts of miniature painting. All right, I think let me try looking at him from further away. I need to turn away from the light for a minute because there's like so much. This light is so bright. I mean, I think it's more of like a middle-y thing now. The hat's a little light. I mean, it is at the top, so it's going to be getting the most light, and that will help draw attention to his face. But I think I will add just a little more. You know, bring some of the highlights down just a little more on the hat. So, yes, to sum up, I guess, which I never do, I think it's important to think about some of that stuff so that you do keep liking your hobby and you don't inadvertently push yourself out of doing things that you like by having unhelpful expectations. And in just a moment, I will share another example that I'm not trying to come up with all these examples all the time. Once or twice, I have done something wrong intentionally to be able to show you how I would fix it in one of the, critique type episodes. But most of my messing up is very natural, unfortunately. All right, I don't know if it's amazing. Maybe it needs just a little more highlight. Zachariah started painting around 77 or 78, which is like ages before I did, because when 2003, I think. That would be my guess from when I first started. I do not understand how this paint can be drying out when the humidity is like just becoming a problem for priming that I need to resolve. So we'll share more about that in just a brief moment after I try and make clothes just a little bit cooler. I mean, he's a wizard. He's a wizard, Harry. He needs to be cool. Oop. I am not keeping in the right area or in focus. My apologies. If I want to muck up it more than that, I think I need to do it with real, like regular brush stuff. We're in Calicut. All right. Then took 9 years off and painted until about 2013, 2014. And then another 8 to 9 years off and don't expect to have a hiatus again. I mean, I painted in the past few years, but not a lot. And I'm hoping to change that. I'm working on my mindset on a bigger level. So big that I'm like, I don't think I know what I'm doing and I probably need help, but that's a different situation. All right, so this guy that I said I would try to paint on this week, it's like, you ever feel like you're cursed? I'm trying not to feel like I'm cursed. So if you look closely, you can see blackness in, okay, some places you don't have to look closely. So what happened? So if he paints, this is the, I do not remember his official name, but he is the miniature that is part of the Ed Pugh Hall of Fame and meet and greet induction at ReaperCon, which I believe is Wednesday night. And I think that you had said something about you're hoping to come back to ReaperCon next year. Haven't painted in a year or so. I've got to fix that before making it to ReaperCon. We would welcome you. We would welcome you anyway. Even if you could paint there. You don't have to paint ahead of time. Null the Reaper, says Quindy. So Julie sculpted this amazing guy. Look at those teeth. Look how fierce he is. I love it. He looks slightly less fierce right now because of the little black things. So what happened? Last night, and I should have started before last night, but, you know, events transpired and I ended up being disorganized. So last night, I'm like, if I can get through some of this basic airbrushing stuff, you're going to have to tell me what an Aquila is, because I'm not the person who knows names of things, Grey Mouser. I'll show you more of it. If you tell me which section it's on, I will show you more of it. So I got out my airbrush, my Reaper airbrush, and I got out some black primer, and I'm like, well, I'll prime it first, because this is a 3D print. And my experience has been that the 3D prints and the Bones USA both do better with priming compared to, I'm very much in the don't prime camp for regular bones. And so I primed, and you know, I don't use an airbrush a lot either, and it has been a long time. But I'm like, it's priming. The worst part's going to be cleaning of it. Because, you know, shooting primer through an airbrush is just... the airbrush does not love it. Let's say that. Although actually that part wasn't too bad. Amazingly, that part wasn't too bad. So I spray them, and I got some overspray in a couple of spots. And I left it for a few minutes because this thing said it was pretty... The thing on a Space Marine chest right side of the scythe. Like there? No, right side of the scythe. There. I'll hold them like that for a minute. On the blade. Oh, this cool thing? He's just cool overall, really. Julie probably knows that. She's probably in the background going, how do you not know these things? So then I started doing a second coat. And then I'm like, okay, I think he's good. I'll put him down. So at first I taped this all up too, because this is a nice piece of wood that I bought. That I felt like it fit the character well, and I liked the shape of it. You know, not being a regular cube for this. And then I was like, well, you know, black primer is not really as black as black paint. And he has parts that need to be, you know, black for the cloth. So I was getting out my black paint and I was starting to get ready. And then I like took a closer look and I'm like, what in the what? It's crazed all over. So I do have a picture of that, I think. Now, crazing is not the same as cracking. We tend to call it cracking. So this is after I started scrubbing it off, but that was the pattern. So it was black on black, but I could see that little scaliness happening. And the other place it was happening a lot was on his arm. And neither of those were areas, there were places on this that, because he's going to be like a weathered guy, there are places I could make this work, but it was in other places as well. So I'm like, well, I just primed it. Surely it will not be that hard to get it off. And I was incorrect. I was extremely incorrect. Yeah, I'd already taken a lot off the arm. And you can see it's kind of wet. But I was like, no, I should get a picture of the crazing. So I know sometimes that happens with, if you paint over, like if you're doing coats pretty fast and the top coat starts to dry quicker than the coat underneath, that can cause the crazing, according to Golden. So it probably was user error. It was probably that I oversprayed or I didn't leave it enough time. But I know, it was Steinelwer's primer, and I know everybody that uses it, apparently, except me, loves it. But that's now the second issue I've had with it. The other issue I had is I used it on bones, and they're sticky, even though it was airbrush, not spray can. And I'm like, I don't understand. So I think I am going to just spray this guy. I'm going to have to go in the basement at night when it's, the paint wasn't dry enough because it's really humid out. The primer I usually use is Duplicolor Sandable from the auto store. My auto store doesn't carry it anymore. We had to order it in special for some weird reason. But I've had very good luck with that. I've only ever had it go funky once from weather conditions. And that was, I definitely was spraying in the summer. When I was getting ready for Gen Con, and it was like, I have to spray. I cannot wait anymore. And unfortunately, it didn't work out great for me. But if I'm not spraying a Gen Con amount of stuff for classes, I'll spray in our garage, which is attached to the house, but I figure it's just a little bit of fumes. Will be okay. That's probably rational, but that is my plan. I was gonna try and do it before the show, which I still wouldn't be able to paint him because I've got to put the black paint on. Then I will go back to the airbrush with the black paint. But Duplicolor will spray in up to 80 or 90 degrees and 60 to 70% humidity. Which is nice that it tells you, because most of them don't. They just say, don't spray when it's too hot or too humid. And it's like, okay, could you define too for me? Because, I'm going to need something more specific than that. So I like that they actually put the information on the thing. But I spritzed it with isopropyl alcohol because I had that right here, and I know it's not great for paint. That's what you use on the airbrush to get the paint out. And that did nothing. So I got out my Simple Green and a toothbrush and just spent a lot of time because I couldn't soak him, right? Like the wood thing, I still had all the tape on, and then I started seeing stain coming off the wood thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope, and I think that's what these little light marks are. I'm gonna see if I can hit that with my wax tack cloth and fix that. But I was like, well, I need to get this off the miniature. I have no way of knowing if it's, if I put additional coats on, would it fill it in? I don't know. Green Users does not know or remember names well, things or people. What about Animal Anatomy? Do you remember the names of that bad? Well, because that seems like something you would remember well. Quindy, I don't like Steinelres. I've tried to use it a bunch of times, haven't had that specifically happen, but I have had stickiness and trouble with it sticking. I've tried it both brush on and airbrush, didn't like it, don't understand the hype. Well, thank you. I feel like, I'm fine if they, want to, if other people enjoy it and use it, rock on. But I think that I'm going to have to just put that aside and stop trying with that because adding friction to before I even start to get to painting is not good. Because like I'm like, oh my god, I've already worked on this so much, and all it looks like I've done is stick a thing to a piece of wood. This is annoying. But I'm trying to be chill about it. I was like, okay, it's a thing that happens. Yes, I did not enjoy the part where I had to scrub it with a toothbrush for an hour and a half with Simple Green. Partly because now things smell like Simple Green, and I do not love the smell of it. It's like there's like this lingering. He smells a little bit like Simple Green, which will hopefully stop once I spray him with the spray primer, because that's got its own smell. But there's just this faint lingering in my room that I don't know how long that is gonna take to go away. Ray Mouser has been using Vallejo Surface Primer for a few years because that's what's available. Zachariah got some bottles of, I assume Stynylrez, cheap, and we'll be trying it out. The way it's flowing in the bottle looks odd to me. Green Research doesn't do words or typing well. I can do the typing well, but I get weird about live. Like that's one reason I don't like talking on the phone, is because someone can, if they ask me a question that I'm not expecting in the context or that I didn't kind of mentally prepare for, sometimes my brain just turns off for 30 seconds while I process the question and try to think of an answer. And I get really self-conscious about that, I guess. No, most people love Stynylrez, so like give it a go. Hopefully you will be in the love it camp. Maybe I just have a particular combination of climate conditions that is. And I will say the ones that went sticky, I did put them in like a plastic bin, so I don't think it was completely airtight or anything, but there was not the same kind of air circulation that there would normally be. Maybe that was part of it. I don't know. So now I have to try to remember. I know it was when I don't like something, I donate it to Paint Club so others can suffer with me. Yes, I actually just did a huge donation of stuff that I was admitting I wasn't going to use or did not like. Hello, what's up, crazy? You left. Your sister's still totally blissed out on catnip. Let's check in on her. Oh yeah, she's pretty bliss. I can't play with you right now though, baby. I can tell that you love my answer. I know that you're very hyper today. I had noticed that. Do I know why you're very hyper today? No, I do not. Okay. It's not that bad. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I can't pick you up right now, boo-boo. She does not care about my answer. Catnip side effects. I don't know if you can. She stopped making noise very briefly. What does that need more of? I'm trying to mix my. Excellent. Now she's on the back of my chair. I'm trying to mix my brown again. Just to fix the sleeves up a little. Hello. Hi. Hi. That's a lot of you. Pretty close to the painting area. And now you're trying to do something to my visual aid. Oh my goodness. What is up, Nutty? There's your head. Do you really want to be multicolored? I don't think you, I mean, you already are. Oh, do you really? They're so good at being cats. Gray Mouser thinks the words are what holds you back at work. I hope not. I mean, people need to be a little more forgiving. And then Zachariah said catnip side effects. So maybe catnip side effects are what hold us back at work. Oh, you're typing. Okay. My mom, I guess she worried about me just, being an unsupervised latchkey child during the summer. So when I was like in junior high, she had me do summer school to keep out of the way, and what I selected was typing. Now, some of that I forgot almost immediately, because this was at such a time as they taught you how to type formal letters and stuff like that. Do I remember that? Absolutely not. And I never did get number keys down by touch, but I can touch type in general pretty well. I have found, like, I used to like really love writing, and lately I have found it more challenging. But I'm trying to start now with like dictation to the computer, and then I will just have to edit. So I'm hoping that that is something I can do when I'm like resting on my back or whatever. I'm also trying to, the whole thing about the power of our minds apparently can even apply to our physical well-being. And as much as I can give you advice on processing miniature painting emotions, I don't think I'm good at the rest of them. But I'm trying. Try some somatic therapies and whatnot off the internet and see if I can be in less pain and paint more. Alright, I'm not going to mess with the skin, but it seems like it would be good to do these like leathery things, and I kind of have to decide about the belt. I don't feel like the belt should be the same color as the leathery things. Zachariah, my brother and I did the same thing. Guess how much we paid for it? $15, and our teacher was a former one-room school marm. You know, the schools that taught all grades in the same room with a single teacher, like in Anne of Green Gables. Which there may still be places where that happens. I don't know. Oh, I did come back to the paint. I went off of the Sleepy Cat and came back to the paint. So I'm trying to make kind of orange. And then we're going to add a little blue and see if we can turn it into orangey brown. And was that a little blue? Maybe that was too much blue, because that's more of a greeny brown, I think. So get back some of the red and the yellow. And ba-bam, I think I have kind of an orangey brown. Zachariah, I think Appalachia has some still, maybe. There are people in the mountains that they made move, because we have a portion of Appalachia here that has been turned into a national park, and you can go and look at old log cabins and stuff. And they did make the people move. But that was, I believe, a hot minute ago. But that is just one portion. There could very well be people in other portions that are still in fairly isolated communities. I did not have to pay for my class. It was done through the Board of Education, and they would, at least I don't think I did. Honestly, I guess if my mom had to pay, I wasn't paying attention. But I did it like 3 years in a row, and one of them was because I wanted to take more electives, but you had to have history and geography, I think. So one year I took history ahead in summer school, and then the other year I took geography ahead so that I could do art and music, and I did drama for 1 year, I think. But I would do the summer school thing to increase my electives options. So I could do the fun things. And man, it was tough sometimes because it was like this old wooden building and it was warm and it was like, I don't know why they couldn't do summer school on an afternoon schedule, but apparently you had to come in like for morning class times. And I would fall asleep. I'd be sitting there pinching my ear trying to, dude, hi, you thought you'd sneak up on me, huh? You may not be quite as sneaky as you think. Oh, your sister's awake. I feel like you should go harass her. And she's like, nope, it's way more fun to harass you. Alas, that is something you believe to be true. Now those are claws in my leg. Thank you. Here's what I should do is a little bit of dark lining. That teacher put the fear of God in us. Needless to say, touch typing stuck with both of us. Wow. Okay, I don't think my typing teacher was scary. It was something I was very happy to know as computers started becoming more of a thing. It was very handy skill to have. And I'm not, did they teach it in my high school? I guess they did teach it in my high school, but I went to, they didn't do summer school at my high school. I had to go further away to a different place. But that was when, when there was that heat thing recently, and I saw that it was super hot in Toronto too. And like, our school is usually, so it starts the day after Labor Day and goes until like mid to late June, depending on whether you're like in high school or elementary school. So in high school, you're just like finishing up the exams, and unless you got like a really terrible exam schedule, you're usually done by mid-June, I think. Obviously, this may have changed because that was like 100 years ago or something. There, she finally is going to go talk to her sister and settle down, or lie on her sister and annoy her, whichever one of those things she decides is most fun. So I'm like, how are those kids surviving in buildings that aren't air conditioned? Because I looked it up, and I think it's still less than half of the schools have air conditioning. I mean, a lot of them are old, and it's not like Toronto is when people think of, Canada and the weather and stuff. It's not like Toronto has winter in June, which sometimes Angela has told me stories about from where she lives in Canada about snow at times of year that I do not think snow should be happening. That's Angela Imrie, who I actually don't know if she's coming to ReaperCon this year. I hope so. I should go look at the class list and see if she's got a class in there. So yeah, it just seemed like do they let the kids off of school when it's insanely hot? Apparently they do not. They have cooling stations, and you rotate in and out of class into the cooling stations. I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't have to live through that, because summer school was bad enough. Hopefully that building is one of the ones that's been air conditioned now. I'm sure I'm forgetting someplace that needs dark lining, but we shall proceed. Quindy has shared the Reaper merch link. Do you know if stuff for this year's ReaperCon is up yet? They usually add shirts with like ReaperCon specific art and cool stuff like that. wearing a shirt from one of the pirate ones right now. And I was thinking that I like the quality of those shirts, so there's a shirt site called Tea Turtle, and they have like a lot of really cute, fun art, but their shirts have a problem with folding at the folding around the collar. That's annoying me. So I've already had to turn down a couple of cute dragon shirts because it ticks me off. So I think I'm gonna go to TeePublic more. That was the auto bot posting, but Quindy does not believe the latest merch is out yet. Well, I bet it's coming and it'll be super cool. The owlbear from Dungeon Dwellers is probably still up there, though. That's one of my favorite shirts. I don't think I've ever shown, so there's these guys that did something called Baby Bestiary, and they do like a calendar of D&D monsters, but they're little cute baby D&D monsters. And then a few years back, they did owlbears, little stuffed owlbears, and they're just adorable. And I got a couple of those, but now they have a new campaign to get them adventuring equipment, which I think is super fun. So you can have a fighter owlbear or a mage owlbear. They'll probably work on some other ones later. So I'm just mentioning in case anyone has ever wanted a stuffed owlbear in their lives. Look up, I think the company is Metal Weave. So do Metal Weave owlbear and you should find something related to that. And you too could have a cute owlbear. And then I bought a third one because they made green and they might make purple. I'm not saying I have an owlbear problem, but I'm also not saying I don't have an owlbear problem. Yeah, I kind of think of 2023 as the year of the owlbear because I had that. And then there is some fun owlbear content in Baldur's Gate 3, which I'm still playing. I'm actually in Baldur's Gate now. It's very exciting. I'm in the actual city, doing city things, marveling at the completely insane names of the NPCs. It's just like, what? So I don't know if they were all getting a little punchy by the time they were naming the NPCs in Baldur's Gate or what is happening, but there are some hilarious names. So I got this stuff right here to make some highlights with, I would say. But man, go in the other direction. So I want it to look a little bit like Orin leather, so I'm going to try to be flippity floppity with my brush strokes. Probably did not need that many highlights. You guys snoring over there? Oh my gosh. Look what she's doing to her sister's head. That's not nice. That's not nice, Taffy. Taffy, I know that sometimes she's obnoxious to you, but that's not nice. Are you guys having a sister day? That's better. That is better, you little goofballs. So silly. So silly of kitties. And then in the background, I am like totally making a mess with some paint mixing. I felt like I needed a little bit of darker browns. And then also for the wood. Because I don't want that leather drawing too much attention. A little back and forth on leather should be fine because it's meant to look kind of worn and stuff, but I do want to get some of that darker color around the corner there. All right, now can I use the principle of these brushes to do like quick cheaty faux wood grain? Let's find out after I get all the blue off my brush. Okay, they're still being adorable. All right, now they're doing their thing where it's like they're one giant cat monster and you can't always tell where one ends and the other begins. Are you a giant cat monster, guys? Or does it just feel that way sometimes? All right, so I actually want this kind of splayed out. Not 100% sure this is working. What if I do the dark color? Probably be very terrible. It's a little more obvious. Trick definitely is not painting things that are done. Let's say it's lucky they're so cute, especially you, Menace. Yeah, you can. Chai's not entirely into the being hugged right now, but she's too sleepy to object. I should probably just put the cats on all the time, not bother about the painting, right? They're too adorable. I'm going to have to remember to take that catnip back to where it belongs, or they'll be like attacking the drawer I put it in. The super catnip. Years and years and years ago, like before people were really into the deliver it every month type thing, there was a catnip of the month club that I debated joining and then decided that that was, my cats did not need that much catnip. Whether my cats agreed with that statement is a different question. I mean, for quickie wood grain, it's not the worst thing that ever happened. Yeah, we call that good enough. I opened a single-size trail mix bag, and my kitten wants to know if the crinkly sound is for him. Yes, this is the problem with them putting cat snacks in Ziploc bags. It's like, okay, cats, yes, that is a sound that is related to your food, but it is also a sound that is related to human food, so back off. This one is for people. Corbin always gets excited about the sound of a Ziploc bag. Alright, so that is a very purpley purple, and I painted his leather in kind of a purple, but desaturated. So that means I must have added some yellow to make it less pretty. Let's see what that is. That is very blue, is what that is. That's a bit better, but let's put just a little more yellow in. I don't want it to turn the corner into green is my concern. Oh, maybe I need to stop being concerned because it's still not looking super. That's more of a leather color, I would say. But what happens if we put just a little more red in? Do it on that side. I don't know. I think I got some water in there too, but that is hopefully okay. Oh wow, I think that is pretty similar to the color I painted, which was sort of, not volcano brown, but back in the day, there was a darker color that went with it. Cinder brown? But it's kind of like volcano if you mix some darkness in. So it's like a purpley brown. Which in theory should work fine because he's got red, he's got blue. Why shouldn't he have some purpley? I don't think there are other leather things that I'm missing. So I will just mix up some highlights with that. No, I went too greenish, didn't I? And I keep doing this. This is not only for your benefit, this is for mine. I can more accurately see what the color is than here. Does that go close enough? Because, well, I'm slightly more practiced with color mixing than I was when I started painting miniatures. I have not done like tons and tons of it. And this is still wet, so I should not even be doing this, but what else can we do? We can fix the blue on his beard, I guess. So, for the grays, I mixed white, and I mixed black, but I also mixed in a little yellow because the art paint guys do that, and I assume there's a reason. And my assumption is that the black pigments are a little too cold to make more neutral, and I made it warmer. I made warmer grays, I think. Anyway, Did I have a bit more white than that in there? So I think it's this one, but let's see how right I am. Because matching value is something that can be tougher than we think it is. It's a good thing to practice too. There used to be this web page that had a cute little program. There's this art guy on YouTube, Sycra, Sycra, and he came up with this value matching game. But it's like you have to have a partner to play it. So there was a programmed version of it where it'd like show you colors and you would match it to the correct grayscale to see if you were seeing the value of the color correctly. And that is a cool exercise that I'm going to have to check and see if someone else made a program of it. Because I think that it's tough, and it would be nice to have a way to practice that without, outside of the context of painting. Like the idea of breaking stuff up. And, when you talk about people studying sports and music and stuff, it's like people will do scales. They'll do just a part of a song. A basketball player will practice just throwing the ball or just dribbling or something. And in the miniature painting world, we always want to get a miniature out of the end result, because like in regular art you might have a notebook and you just practice noses, which are the demons of portrait painting. I don't know if they're as hard to sculpt as they are to paint or draw, but noses just mess a lot of us up, and I am definitely one of the people who has messed up my noses. It helps if you stop thinking about it as a nose, but even then, it's a weird 3D shape that you're trying to turn into a 2D shape. It's a challenge. Anyway, there's not a miniature equivalent of that for most people. It's like you want to have a miniature at the end of your miniature painting. So the closest I think we do is you just pick something that you're focusing on. So, you might be focusing on painting skin, and then you just kind of paint the rest of the miniature up quick and use it in your game. But very few of us are going to just take a bunch of miniatures, paint the skin, and then not bother with the rest. At least I don't think a lot of us do that. If that's what the truly amazing people are doing, I have failed to hear about it. I mean, you can also just take the same figure and paint a part of it over and over again, I guess. But it's hard to compare then, because you don't have the figure anymore. I do not think that you should always be painting over old figures that didn't turn out great. I think you want to be able to compare, because sometimes when you feel like you're not making progress, you're making progress. Your eye has improved, and that's why you're more critical of your stuff. Well, I painted his thingies gray, but now I'm trying to decide if I, for silver, but now I'm trying to decide if gold would be better. Gold would be something I am less familiar with mixing, which probably means I should stick with gray, all right? Not make my life even harder? Or do you enjoy watching me flail around trying to mix things? And then, of course, another kind of color thing you can practice is mixing. Like, you can get samples from the paint store, or, you know, just grab a magazine and try to match colors. Something you can paint on, I guess is what I mean, without feeling too bad. So you want to be able to paint onto the thing that you're matching to be able to see if you matched. Zachariah says my streams are great. Well, thank you. I hope that there are some other people who enjoy something. I mean, in addition to the awesome cats. Here, we'll just check in on the awesome cats. That's funny. It's from Lee Tabby that sleeps with her arms out in front of her. She does it so much. Like, we call it Superman pose. She will sometimes do just one arm, like Christopher Reeve. But sometimes it's both. Because they are tiny goofballs. Right, guys? Yep, 1 minute you're like climbing all over me like a complete crazy nut. And the next minute... That bag is a very bland color, but I think I'm just going to live with that for now, if nothing else. And move on. Well, I did not get all of, there's like a little curly Q type decoration that I was trying to line around to help it pop. And I did not get the whole Q of the curly Q. That seems way too low. Alright. So I think his beard is dry. And I will try to do beard real quick. Here we are in the area of something that I do occasionally paint, so maybe I will not be completely terrible at it. That is probably going up a little quickly. Regretting putting whatever that was there now. Well, you know what? We do need straight up white, I believe. It almost seems a little... Did I not cover up all the blue? It almost seems a little blue to me, and I thought I went with a warm gray. But maybe my eyes are just being silly. I didn't think about when I picked these cats out that it would be very hard to paint them in miniature compared to tabbies. I have practiced painting tabbies a bunch. And here is one of the most tabby things you can do, is if you look at their foreheads, the stripes make a little M. And then they almost always have like the raccoon stripy tails, ring tails, I guess. But these guys just sort of have random little bits of creamy or beige or whatever, and then where it's more brown. but I do think tortoiseshells are pretty. When I was talking to the foster, there was like they actually called my references and everything. It was like there was a process, and the friend that they called had coincidentally had someone put her on references recently for adopting a child, and she said the like questions were about as intense for both of these projects. But so once they decided that I wasn't like a horrible person, I got to talk to the foster lady directly, and she said that she'd had this woman come in, like who was interested in them, but then she said, no, I think they would look scary to my daughter. I'm like, what? What is scary about tortoiseshells? Now, when they climb up you, is it scary? Yes, it can be. But they don't just inherently look scary. That's silly. I mean, I'm not complaining because then she didn't adopt these kitties and they were still there for me. Because it was like a month from when I first saw them to when I was like, all right, let's I think we can go for it now. I think Corbin will adjust better to having a new friend than he is to having no friend. We were starting to worry he was getting a little weird. Because they say, give it up to 6 months to let the surviving cat kind of get adjusted. If you've had a cat, they're not exactly super into change. Let's put it that way. They're not very like pro changing stuff. So the advice made sense, but he was starting to get weird and I was very sad. So I'm like, I'm pretty sure these are the kitties. I'm pretty sure these are the ones. And I'm not like a big hunch person, but it has worked out for me with cats. So he's got quite a beard. I do want it to be magnificent. I'm trying to decide whether there's too much dark gray in some spots. I like good contrast in here, but I do want him to look like he has pretty light colored hair. Should probably have paid more attention to this angle, I think, but it is what it is. So for anyone who wasn't here last week, this actually started, it was Canada Day and 4th of July was coming up, and so I thought it'd be fun just to paint with, red, white, and blue, but if you want to get any kind of brownish skin color, you need to add yellow to that, and then if you want to make anything dark enough, you need to add black. So but that's why there's, I'm focusing on the blue and the red, and the white is part of kind of the theme, and the brown things are just a little bit for our accents. But since my neighbors, at least as of last night, are still lighting off fireworks, I feel like I'm still in the time zone for working on the sky. I wish I were kidding. And the actual day of, there were some people pretty close who kind of went all in on having a lot of fireworks. Because usually we can hear them, but we can't see them. Like, we just, acoustically, I think our house is in a weird place, where we can hear a lot of things, depending on the wind and various other factors. But when I looked out the window, I could actually see fireworks over the trees. So I'm like, nope, they're right over there. we could go out and even watch fireworks if we wanted, but we decided to not freak our neighbors out and keep the cats company instead. Okay, well, Corbin was under the bed by this point, I'm sure. I had to make his thunder shield, thunder cave. He likes to go under the bed and sit on, I have like a little mat beside my side of the bed, but then it's even better if we put an additional blanket out and it drapes over the bed and he can kind of like roll up in it. Which is just one of those things that, I mean, like how did this creature that I share very little in common with, and we definitely don't speak the same language, how did he manage to convey to me that he likes when I go get this blanket and put it over the bed when it's thundering or fireworks? And I'm pretty sure everybody with a pet would have a similar, like, this is not a thing that all the animals do, but this specific animal, and I understand that it likes this or it doesn't like that or whatever thing. All right, well, I can paint hair for days, so I should probably stop doing that. Just make sure we got the bright white little bits. He uses the good beard oil. Alright, so I'm down to the silver versus gold decision, and not as much palette as one might like. Also only 10 minutes, so chances are that I'm not going to finish this, but maybe I can come up with a color. I like a sort of chestnutty brown for gold sometimes, you know, this is like a greenish brown. If Tiberius likes something I'm doing, he chews on me. I have a lot of bite marks. That's my story and I'm sticking to it. I am trying to discourage biting and claw poking. Not sure that's going to turn out great for me if they do that too much. We really need to trim their little feet. They've got some rapiers going. What does that look like? That feels very orangey to me. Yes. I was smarter this time and did not put out as giant of pools for my... I did feel bad last week. I had significant pools left that I was decided I really couldn't keep them until this week, so I just threw it away. Yeah, that feels more like what I want, I think. Zachariah is doing the whole gentle steering thing with him. It's working. He's 65% soft pawing, you know. The biting is a work in progress. Yeah, some of them seem more bitey than others. Tavi doesn't she doesn't bite people that much. But she's super into biting like paper and stuff. But that one, I still haven't replaced that one magical Amazon box that she just loved more than anything on earth to chew on it. I do not know what was so different about that one. I've tried many a delivery box since then, but they just haven't been the right combination of, I don't know, chewy and flappy, or I do not know what goes through her tiny brain. But I did give her a new box that I think she likes, as a box at least, even if she doesn't want to bite it. My husband had to get a replacement box for one of our board games because it got mangled a bit. and shipping. And they put such nice artwork on these things now. And I've been kind of working on like collage and art journal type stuff in my spare time. So hardly ever, but I was like, I've been able to get some, paper is layered, and usually the pretty label part is like a sticker or paper thickness layer rather than cardboard thickness, and I've been able to get it off a few, I practice on Kleenex boxes and a few other things, and it's surprising how different all these papers react, but there are some similarities. So I was like, I will try taking this off and potentially reusing this art rather than just throwing it all away. So I got it off, and then there was, like the box wasn't as sturdy because it's missing that layer, but it seems like something that Tabby might like, so I gave it to her. So I'm just putting like red plus black in the deeper crevices because I don't think they should be straight up black if I'm painting it gold. I'll put that in here too and change my mind later if I want. Maybe. This is not quite the color that I usually use for gold. I think we need to make it a little less red. And maybe a little darker. Thanks, Sakura. Oh, now they're cleaning each other, which I still cannot tell if that is like somehow related to kitty dominance. Who is the washer and the washee? That is how the fights, when they start, that is usually how the fights start. I mean, it seems to me if somebody else is watching you and you're a cat that they're doing you a favor, but what do I know? Especially when it always seems like they are being nice and thoughtful if they're getting like behind the ears and behind the head where the cat has trouble reaching on themselves. I think that's part of the reason they like to get scritched on the back of the head so much. Okay, every cat I've ever known likes to get scritched there, even if they don't like to get touched in other places very much, which is definitely Corbin. But there's this thing apparently where some cats are very sensitive along like the spinal cord area, like they have more nerves, or their nerves are more sensitive, and he definitely has this thing. You get about halfway down his back, if you start petting him further back than that towards the base of the tail, like he's uncomfortable. Like it's not just that he's like, who are you and why are you touching me? It's like it's physically uncomfortable for him in some way. And that has been true ever since he was little. And we used to think it was because he threw himself into walls a lot when he was playing. Our new vet says it's was telling us about this sensitivity thing. Oh, this part is also meant to be that color and those things on his back. Which I should get an even smaller brush for, probably. Yes, I think I do have to look for my small brush. I promise I won't keep you too late there, Quindy. I do just want to see if I can get the gold finish, because then he's pretty much done other than that gem. And I can just do that while waiting for something to dry. Another week. Now this mixed brown is probably not quite as opaque as a lot of brown out of the bottle would be, because those, like we've got the, what were they called? Not ochres. What did you call them? Oxides. So the oxide brown, oxide yellow, and oxide red, those are actually different pigments. And those kinds of earth pigments are typically pretty opaque compared to the brighter ones that make like red and magenta and blue and stuff. The more vivid ones, I should say. They're not always lighter in value. But definitely like oxide or ochre yellow is going to be a lot more opaque than like a bright sunny yellow. It is also easier to mix these kinds of colors starting with an oxide type color paint. Skin colors like this gold and brown and leather and stuff. So I do recommend them, like if you're doing a limited set and you have space for, 12 or 15 paints, those are ones I definitely recommend. I have no idea what show it is, but there was an episode that I did mixing skin with those. And that will be on YouTube, on Reaper's YouTube channel, which is just Reaper Miniatures, and then there's a like a playlist for each of the recurring shows. So Reaper Live, and I think Quindy started dividing Ends shows up by which figure it is. So instead of being chronological, it's because she works on a rotating selection of figures, and that is 11:30. She starts 11:30 a.m. Texas time, which is Central. luckily small NMM doesn't require a lot of fussy blending, so this is hopefully not going to take too long. That's possibly a little too yellowy, but it is what it is. Gold definitely has yellow in it, but not quite as much as Songs and Whatnot would have you believe. So I was trying to dull that out just a little there. So this is the stage where I do like to have some yellow, but the previous stage should have been just a little less yellow. For my taste, at any rate. Oops, did I forget this part? Yes, 100%. Now I kind of want more of a cream. Oops. And these are pretty small areas that I'm going for now. Not always with success. This needs to be a little wider. And you don't always have to go up to pure white with gold. But I got it, so I will. I'm not going to put it on the lower part. I don't want that to draw that much attention. But I will give it a little bit of that. In an ideal world, I might come back and fiddle with the color a little, but this is not meant to be that miniature. So apart from his gem and the base, he actually is done now. And pretty much, I think. Oh, well, of course, the red hood. But we know that Quindy is already sad. So we'll show her some more cats and then let her find a raid and let us go. And I will see you again next week. in theory, I guess it's possible. Here I am going to flip away from the cats for just a sec. In theory, it is possible I may be able to do some stuff with this guy on stream. It'll depend on kind of where I am. I do want to try some things with airbrush after the priming. I'm going to see if I can. I've been debating whether it's going to be possible to airbrush some of the bone as well, like if I cover up the rest of, cover up all the black things. But we will find out. Oh, this is funny. Let me show you. Sorry, Wendy. Sorry. Hopefully, we're going to be rating quantum minis, and I'll just show this and then leave. So I was looking for old bone reference photos. Our bones sag with age. Like the news about getting older just keeps on rocking. But cheer yourself up by going to watch Quantum Minis and spreading the Reaper love. And I'll see you again next week. Give you just a little view of kitties before I head out. Thanks for coming, everyone. I really appreciate it. Bye.